Have you ever stopped to wonder where words come from? It is one of the biggest and most fascinating questions we can ask about ourselves. Language is everywhere. We use it to tell stories, to share our feelings, to build the world around us. But how did it all begin? Imagine a time long, long ago, before any books, before any schools, before the first real words were ever spoken. This is the starting point of our incredible journey. We are going back to the very dawn of humanity to explore how we learned to speak. It is a story filled with mystery, clever inventions, the amazing power of the human mind. This tale belongs to every single one of us, no matter what language we speak today. The story of language is not like the history of a king or a country. We have no exact date for when the first word was uttered. There are no fossils of speech we can dig up from the ground. Instead, scientists, who we call linguists, act like detectives. Clues in ancient bones show how our ancestors' bodies were built for sound. Studies of brain wiring reveal how we are made for communication. Observing how languages change today helps us imagine past changes. Think about what makes us different from other animals. Many animals can make sounds. Birds sing beautiful songs, dogs bark to warn us of danger. But human language is special. We can combine a small number of sounds to make thousands of different words. We can arrange these words into countless sentences to express any idea we can imagine. We can talk about the past, plan for the future, even tell lies. This ability took hundreds of thousands of years to develop. Long before people had words like hello or thank you, they still needed to communicate. Think about our earliest ancestors, perhaps living on the vast plains of Africa over 1 million years ago. They had to find food, avoid dangerous animals, and take care of their families. How did they do it without a proper language? They used what they had, their bodies and their voices. A sharp cry could mean, "Look out, a lion!" A pointed finger could mean, "Let's go over there." A gentle touch could mean, "I am here to help you." This system of communication was simple, but it was effective enough for survival in a challenging world. Gestures were incredibly important. Early humans would have shown each other how to chip away at a rock to make a sharp edge. They would have used hand signals to coordinate a hunt, pointing to the location of an animal, signaling when to move forward. Alongside gestures, sounds played a crucial role. These were not yet words, but they were full of meaning. A happy hum might have been used to soothe a baby. A sudden grunt could express effort. A series of calls could help a group stay together while moving through a dense forest. The big change happened when our bodies evolved. Over many thousands of years, the shape of our throat and mouth changed. Our voice box or larynx dropped lower in the throat. Our tongue became more flexible, and we gained finer control over our lips. We could suddenly produce a much wider range of distinct sounds than any other primate. So, our ancestors had the physical ability to speak, but why did they start? The answer likely lies in their changing lives. As groups grew larger and more organized, they needed better ways to cooperate. Imagine planning a mammoth hunt with only hand signals. It would be nearly impossible. Words would have made it simpler. Another reason, sharing information. Early humans learned new things every day. They discovered which plants were safe to eat, which plants were poisonous. They learned where to find water, where to find shelter. That knowledge couldn't be lost. Language let them pass info from parents to children and across the whole community. Life also became more social. People lived in larger, more permanent settlements. You needed to know who was who. You needed to track relationships. Who was your friend? Who was a relative? Who owed you a favor? Language was perfect for that. Once language was born, it did not stay the same. As human populations grew, they began to move out of Africa and spread across the entire globe. As each group moved into a new environment, they encountered new things. They saw different animals, woolly mammoths in the cold north, kangaroos in the sunny south. They found new plants and trees. They needed words for all of these new discoveries, so they invented them. As groups of people became separated by mountains, oceans, or vast deserts, their languages began to change in different ways. Think of it like a game of telephone. A word that started out the same in two places might be pronounced a little differently over time. After a few thousand years, the two groups might not be able to understand each other at all. This is how different languages were born from a common ancestor. Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, they are like sisters in a big language family. Every language in the world reflects the history and culture of the people who speak it. For example, the Inuit people have many different words for different types of snow, because understanding snow is essential for their survival. Sometimes languages come into contact through trade, migration, or conquest. When this happens, they often borrow words from one another. English borrowed thousands of words from French after the Norman conquest. For many tens of thousands of years, language existed only in sound. Stories, histories, knowledge were passed down by spoken word and memory. But there was a problem with this method. Human memory is not perfect. Stories could change with each telling. Important information could be lost when a knowledgeable person died. As societies grew, governments, laws, extensive trade, people needed a more reliable way to store and share information. They needed something that would last longer than a spoken word. They needed to invent writing. The first steps were pictures, not letters. Around 5,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, the Sumerians began keeping records. They tracked grain, sheep, pottery. They drew pictograms on wet clay tablets. A head of grain pictogram meant grain. A sheep's head meant sheep. It was a brilliant idea. Information could be recorded and saved. Messages could travel without relying on memory. It was revolutionary. Picture writing worked for simple objects but had limits. How do you draw love or happiness? How do you write a name? Scribes invented a trick. They used pictures to represent sounds. This is the rebus principle for belief, bee and a leaf, massive breakthrough. The early writing systems like Mesopotamian cuneiform, Egyptian hieroglyphs were amazing, but they were also very complicated. To learn them, you had to memorize hundreds or even thousands different symbols. This meant that only a small, highly trained group of people called scribes could read and write. It took many years of difficult study to master the skill. For writing to become something that everyone could use, it needed to be simpler. A new invention was needed, one that would make literacy accessible to many more people. This incredible invention was the alphabet, a system where each symbol represents a single sound. The first real alphabet was developed around 3,800 years ago in the ancient Near East. They were likely inspired by Egyptian hieroglyphs, but they simplified the idea in a genius way. Instead of using a picture for a whole word, they used a simplified picture for just the first sound of that word. For example, the Semitic word for water was mayim. They used a wavy line, representing water, to stand for the M sound. The word for head was resh, so a simple drawing of a head came to represent the R sound. This brilliant idea was picked up by the Phoenicians, a great trading people. As they sailed and traded with different cultures, they spread their new, simple writing system far and wide. The Greeks adopted the Phoenician alphabet but made a crucial addition. The Phoenician system only had symbols for consonant sounds. The Greeks added symbols for vowels, creating the first true alphabet. For thousands of years after the invention of writing, every book had to be copied by hand. This was a slow, expensive, and tiring process. A single book could take a monk months or even years to copy. Because of this, books were rare and incredibly valuable. They were luxury items that only the very wealthy could afford. An ordinary person might never even see a book in their entire lifetime. Everything changed around 1450. A German inventor named Johannes Gutenberg created a machine that would change the world, the printing press with movable type. His great idea was to create individual metal letters that could be arranged, locked into a frame, covered with ink, and pressed onto paper. This process could be repeated over and over again. The first major book Gutenberg printed was the Bible. Before the printing press, a Bible was a rare treasure. Suddenly they could be produced in large numbers. But the revolution did not stop with religious texts. Ancient Greek philosophy, new scientific ideas, poems, political pamphlets, information began to flow like a river through Europe. The printing press fueled some of the biggest changes in Western history: the Renaissance, the Reformation, the Scientific Revolution. Scientists could share discoveries with wide audiences. Thinkers could debate through printed pamphlets. Literacy rates began to rise as books became more affordable and accessible. Some people think that language reached a perfect final form at some point in the past and that any new changes are a sign of decay or laziness. But this is not true at all. The history of language shows us one clear lesson: language is always changing. The English we speak today is very different from the English of Shakespeare, and his English was very different from Old English. One of the biggest drivers of language change today is technology. Internet, email, mobile phones brought new words and new styles of writing. Selfie, Google, emoji, vlog, unfriend. These words were created because we needed them to describe new objects, actions, and ideas. Another reason language changes is because of social and cultural shifts. As our societies become more aware of equality and diversity, our language evolves to reflect these values. People are reviving and celebrating minority and indigenous languages. This shows that language is not just a tool for communication, It's a powerful symbol of identity and cultural pride. Our journey through the history of language has taken us from the simple grunts and gestures of our earliest ancestors to the complex digital world of today. This long and incredible story is not just about words. It is the story of human ingenuity, creativity, and our deep need to connect with one another. Understanding this history is important. It helps us appreciate the amazing gift we all possess. We often take language for granted, but it is a remarkable tool that we use every moment of our waking lives. Knowing where it came from can give us a new sense of wonder about our ability to speak, read, and write. Every sentence we utter is part of a story that is hundreds of thousands of years old. Learning about language history teaches us to be more open-minded about how language changes. When we hear new slang, different accents, or evolving expressions, we can see them as the natural process of linguistic evolution in action. Finally, the story of language is the story of what it means to be human. It connects us to our past and to each other, bridging gaps between individuals and cultures. By understanding how this incredible system began and grew, we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and our shared human journey. It is a story that belongs to all of us. And it is a story that is still being written.